Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Each time on the Dr. Diane Show, we have experts from around the country discussing cutting-edge topics on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, spirituality, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. Today, I'm excited to have Lauri Ingram on my show. She is a seeker of truth, motivated by her curiosity and desire to lead others on their own journeys of self-discovery. She believes we all long to lead a fulfilled life, and that it is in the journey that we find fulfillment as we discover our personal truths. After a long career in corporate IT and discovering the vast benefits of mindfulness, Lauri now guides others as they explore who they are in a more spiritual, conscious sense. Lauri is an advanced crystal dreaming practitioner and teacher, an advanced shamanic modality that provides a profound opportunity to heal wounds and traumas, explore lives and lessons, and connect clients to their highest selves and to those beings that guide us. She is an ordained interfaith, interspiritual minister and a certified interspiritual counselor, leading ceremonies for all of life's transitions. So welcome, Lauri. How are you today?
I am very good. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Yeah, we have some amazing conversations, that's for sure. And I'm
Yes.
expecting this one to be exactly the same. And usually the way I like to start these shows off is so that my listeners and viewers can just get to know a little bit more about you and your journey and your path. And I'm sure when people heard your bio that you were in corporate IT for so many years, to make that shift to becoming a spiritual counselor and coach, I mean, that is a pretty huge jump.
Yes.
So tell us what inspired that.
Yeah, you really can't change much more than I did,
Yeah.
one extreme to the other. But you know what I found before I tell you the real brief story is it's always been who I am. I just spent a good part of my life not living it, living what I thought I should be doing. But my career really came about in an interesting way. I actually wanted to be an artist, an art student. But when I was in college, so, full disclosure, I graduated from college in 1980. Computers were new. It was a whole new thing. And, I remember my father saying to me, you need to make a living, right? You're not going to be successful as an artist. And I'm like, you're right. So I ended up getting into actually programming, which for me was very creative. It was a very creative thing. Um, and once you enter that corporate world and you start down that path, it's really hard to get out of it. So I moved from very quickly realizing I'm not a technologist at all. I moved into project management and leadership and such. And there was a point in my life, about 20 years into my career, where I had a lot of things happen in a very short amount of time. I had my daughter, and my mother passed away, and my marriage fell apart, and I lost everything financially. That all happened within probably a 3-year period, right around a time of like I was in my 40s, and I quickly moved into survival mode. So I took a career that I enjoyed, and it became really my life. My life became work and being a single mother. Until a point in my mid 50s where I'll never forget this day. I went into work one day, and I was working at a very, very, very large corporation in Hartford. I love the people I worked with. I had worked with great people, and I kind of liked my job. But I had this realization that I was literally just surviving, going, working, going home, working, going home. My daughter was getting older, and I realized that something wasn't right, but I really didn't know what it was. And I had a conversation with my boss at the time, and she said to me, but why do you work aside from the paycheck, right? Why do you work? And I realized I really didn't know. I really didn't know. But you know what happens when we open ourselves up to that and we suddenly, in my case, I suddenly became aware of where I was or not. Things started to show up for me. And I was very fortunate that I worked in a progressive company that was very open to bringing mindfulness into the workplace. At the time, I was just exploring meditation and all. And I became a mindfulness advocate in addition to working in IT. And that became my why in that last probably 7 or 8 years of my corporate life, was not only doing what I did from a technology perspective, but also being a very mindful leader and bringing mindfulness to the business place and my life. And it totally changed the way I worked, the way I lived, and then opened me up to all the other things I've done since then, of exploration. So,
I mean, that's pretty amazing that they actually allowed you to do that. I think,
mhm,
like, I
yeah,
mean, although I will say, like, it does seem like more and more corporations are becoming more open to things like that. But it is pretty amazing that, you were able to actually take that piece that you loved and bring it into your current job.
absolutely. And there are no coincidences, Diane. I'll never forget the day I was sitting at my desk and on our company intranet, and this thing popped up and it said, we're going to be training people to be mindfulness advocates. Are you interested? And I'm like, sure. And I remember filling it out, right? And thinking, okay. And then, I was in the first, and they taught many classes, over the years, and I was in the very first class. And I just, in a way, I was surprised, and in a way, I wasn't, because I really feel like energetically, I had opened myself up to, let me see
Hmm.
where this all takes me. And I do believe that when we do that from a place of conscious awareness, we send those energetic signals out to the universe, and they're like, okay, we have to just, kind of watch for them. And if I had thought too much about it, I could have talked myself out of it, right? Well,
Right.
who am I to do this? But I just knew in my heart that there was a reason why it showed up, and
Yeah.
I just followed it, which has kind of been the way I've lived my life intuitively without necessarily realizing that's what I was doing. A lot
Hmm.
of my life has just been led from a place of intuition.
So I bet many people are wondering, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that are in the same position that you were in. They're in a
Mm-hmm.
corporate position or some type of position that they're not happy with anymore, or maybe it was never really their passion. How did you make the leap?
So I started just after that. I started exploring. You name it, I tried it. Modalities, and I was raised Catholic, but I was not religious, and I'm still not religious,
Me
but I'm
too.
spiritual, right?
Yep.
Right, but I'm spiritual,
Right.
and I remember that I met somebody who introduced me to a community here in Connecticut that met on Sundays, and it was considered spiritual but not religious. So I figured I'll go. I went, and when I walked in, there was a sign there for this seminary in New York City called One Spirit, and I remember seeing it and having a knowing, just a knowing that I had to go there. No intention on ever being a minister, and I went through their 2 year program really because it was a deep dive into of inner work for 2 years of unraveling and reassembling who I was. And that was why I went. But when I was there, I found two things. One, I really loved the idea of working one on one with people to take them through the same process, which spiritual counseling. So I stayed on and did 2 more years of study there in spiritual counseling. But I also found a love for other things, crystals and meditation and mindfulness. And I brought my creativity came back to me. And that became part of me pulling together these modalities into, and started offering workshops little by little. And to the point where about a year and a half ago, I left my corporate life. But the other interesting thing, which I quite honestly didn't connect the dots until recently, is I also became, as being a minister, my friend said to me, you should do weddings. And I'm like, well, I never really thought about that. So I started doing weddings and I absolutely love it. And I was thinking recently, like, what is it about that so aligns, other than just being in that space of love?
Right.
You can't, it's a great place to be. But when I think about my corporate training, I was trained in public speaking. I'm very comfortable in front of people. I've done presentations for years, in front of thousands of people. It took those leadership skills, that ability to communicate to a couple, to bring their vision to life. There's so many components of my work life that support me now. So yes, I may have totally transformed my life, but every skill I've built over the years comes into play with what I do now. It's
Yeah,
just in a different way.
exactly. I tell people that all the time who are thinking about, like making some type of career transition or change or looking into something. It's like you have skills now. I don't care whether you're 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or whatever,
Hmm.
that are going to help you in whatever your next, chapter is. Just like what you said, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But we often don't give ourselves credit, right? And that's a lot of the work that I had to do over the years was, just really stepping outside myself and looking at myself.
Mhm.
And I like to tell people I work with that we really need to move to a place of, internal validation of who we are, as opposed to seeking it externally.
Yeah,
And that's
similarly
a
to
process.
right, right. Similarly, although definitely not as intensive as what you did, is when I was going through a career change, I went through a life coaching certification, which was like
Hmm.
about 2 years or so.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, I would recommend that to anybody, just because of the personal development that you get from it and what you learn
exactly.
about, like you might find passions that you had, that you completely forgotten about.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was an artist all the time when I was little, and I put it aside. Now it's a big part of my own personal practice and what I bring to some of my clients who have that interest as well. So
Right.
full
Yeah. And that
circle.
Yeah, yeah. And that probably came out by doing a lot of this deeper work when you were going through, training to be a
Absolutely.
minister and all of that for sure. So we're going to talk about more of, your background and what you do. I'm sure people are going to be fascinated in terms of just to understand what is it like when someone comes to see you. So I want to get into all
Hmm.
those things. And you mentioned art. We're going to talk about that as well. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will be exploring more about interspirituality with Lauri Ingram, certified interspiritual counselor. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. But before we continue, I want to make sure everyone knows how to contact me. You can find me at www.drdianehayden.com or either of my two publications, www.naturalnutmeg.com and www.essentialnaples.com. And you can learn more about Lauri Ingram at www.lauriingram.com. That's LAURIINGRAM.com. So welcome back, Lauri. We were talking about, just basically how people can make that leap from maybe a position that they're not so passionate
Mm.
about anymore, and just your story in terms of how you did it and everything. And, a lot of the personal development work that you've done to kind of get to where you are. So let's talk more about what exactly it is that you do, because I think people are very curious about, what is spiritual ministry, what is an interspiritual counselor. So why would someone come see you, and what are all the different services that you offer?
Most of the people that come to see me consider themselves spiritual but not religious, and many have a religious upbringing, but feel that there is something more to why they're here. And to me, interspirituality is really that intersection of every belief, or actually no belief at all. But it's figuring out what your place is in the world, really, and how you interact um, with whatever you consider consciousness to be. Uh, when clients come to me, often they can be in therapy, um, but often don't want to talk to their therapist about these kinds of things, or don't feel comfortable. Um, they've often been in therapy or psychotherapy, perhaps even with a coach. I'm really more of a companion and a guide. So to me, as a counselor, to counsel, to advise, to mentor, I journey with my clients in many different ways. And essentially, first we figure out where they are, because you really have to figure out where you are. Many clients, if they come to me, don't know where they are, just don't know that something's not quite where they want it to be. If I think back on, several, I could give one example of a woman who came to me. She said, I just don't know what my purpose is, but I feel like it's not what I'm doing for a living. And initially, when people come to me, our first meeting is a conversation. It's getting to know each other. It's them getting to know me and how I work, but also me getting to know them to see if we're really a good fit. I have many tools in my toolkit that I can pull out. I have clients who come to me who are very interested in other levels of consciousness. And I have modalities that we can use to explore our higher selves and our guides and past lives and those kinds of things. But I have a lot of other folks who come to me who really are just seeking that inner awareness and want to remove those things that are blocking them energetically. So those first meetings or two are often educational, where we talk about what is energy, our energetic bodies, how stories can be held holding us back, and often those are energies that we can work with to release, right? But first we have to acknowledge them. um, I know that life is not always easy, so I create a space of non-judgment and really work with my clients to hold that center for them and allow them to work through whatever their emotions may be. Um,
I just want to pause for you for a second, because I think
sure.
that was what you just said was so important, that you hold a space of non-judgment. Where
Mhm.
can people get that these days?
It's
I
really
mean,
hard.
yeah, I
Really
mean, it
hard.
just kind of like it that hit me when you said that. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, like that's the reason there, I think, that you are so valuable to your
Yeah.
clients, because I think people get judgment everywhere from, their family, from their, significant others, from friends, from work. I mean, everything.
Society. Uh,
Yes.
just go onto social media,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yes,
Yep.
that's all that. When we're so bombarded by those external forces, we totally lose sight of who we are. So I set a space and hold a space for clients to explore that in a way that is non-judgmental. I have folks, will say, I don't know if I can tell you. Okay, tell me anything. Believe me. I don't, nothing's weird. Nothing, it's really an exploration in a place of safety. Because I think I honestly believe at this point in my life that that's why we're here. We're here to explore, right?
Mhm.
We put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and I did for a long time, to have a thing, right? To have a specific purpose. But I really think we're here to take away those layers and to reconnect with our true essence. And that's the joy of living. Not always easy, right? Not always fun, but um but understanding that and then building our own in resilience to take us through those times where we really are uncertain and things aren't going our way. um but but how do we show up? um and there's an analogy that I often use as well. If you think about a cork in water, right, it floats, and to hold that cork under the water takes a lot of effort, and when we're not acting in an authentic way, and when we're not being truly who we are, there's a lot of pressure on us, right?
Mm,
And when we can move into a place of openness, that cork just naturally floats to the top, right? And it's
mhm.
it's a place of ease. um, and every journey is different, so I really meet people where they are. um,
And I would imagine for all different situations, like we kind of started the show talking about just like career transition, let's say, but I'm
mhm.
sure that people come to you who are dealing with health challenges or relationship challenges, or like you said, trying to find their purpose, like all different kinds of things, right?
Yes, and what's interesting is when I first was working, I thought, well, I have this client. Clients will probably be like me, you know, middle to the entering the third act of life. But I have clients who are young. I have clients in their 20s who are making decisions about getting married, having families, who are really struggling to be in this world and live authentically when that's not necessarily what their family wants them to do, right? It's
Mm,
not necessarily what society wants to do. I have more and more young people coming to me, seeking that space where they can explore. Like, I don't want a 9 to 5 job, right? I don't want to live in that way. I And so that has surprised me. And I have as many male clients as I do women clients as well. But the common thread is wanting to really break through, right?
mm,
Wanting to break through the pressure of whatever might be outside of them, um, and getting someone to really hold space and give them permission to ask those questions that in many places they can't ask. You know.
right. Yeah. So you mentioned that people might be in therapy, then they might come to you, or maybe they've tried therapy or whatever. So
Hmm.
let's talk a little bit like how is spiritual coaching and counseling different from traditional therapy or even traditional coaching? And why would
Hmm.
someone choose that route, either in
Right.
conjunction with or as opposed to, let's say?
Well, if we think of therapy or psychotherapy, there's a labeling that happens in those situations, a diagnosis or a label. I don't label because I don't believe there's anything wrong with the people who come to see me.
Hmm.
I believe that they are innately divine. They just need some help seeing it. So, part of that initial assessment that I work with clients on is let's make sure that you're in a space where you really don't need professional help. Um, and most people that have done that have worked through maybe those initial, and there is a place for therapy. I was in therapy for a long time. I still occasionally see a therapist when I feel like there's something um, that I need additional help with.
Sure.
But I don't label, I don't diagnose. um, and even from a coaching perspective, the difference really is I see this as an unfolding is really a journey. With coaching, we can we can we can have specific goals that we can set, and that would be more of a spiritual coaching situation. But most folks that I work with who come to me, we begin a process that then lasts probably the rest of their lives, just like I my process will last the rest of my life probably. And we work usually every 2 weeks for probably about 3 months because there's momentum, there's energy we work through, there's uh, releases that we go through energetically, and I use different modalities for that. And then at the end of that time, we reassess. And usually people are at a point of momentum there where then we work every month or so as more of a check-in. And we are constantly in a process of reassessing. Do you need this right now? Right? If there's a specific um, thing that's happening, we might work on that. But coaching to me is you have a goal and you're going to meet it, right? And
Yeah.
I can't say to somebody, you'll be enlightened when you finish working with me, because I don't, that's not going to happen, right? But I can help you through a period of 3 months to break through that which is standing in your way, right? And 3 months seems to be a sweet spot for a lot of folks. That's when I think about clients, that's usually about right. Where after 3 months of, you know, like 6 meetings, they're seeing the world totally differently
Hmm.
at that point. And then it's a matter of, okay, where do we go from there?
Right.
So,
Which is amazing. I mean, I think, I'm a coach. I've worked with coaches. I've worked with spiritual coaches. I know the difference, obviously. I'm asking
mm,
you to, talk
yeah,
about it so our listeners can understand. I think, for me, the difference, what I like about both is exactly what you said. There's a goal. Like when
hmm,
you're doing coaching, let's say like it was business coaching, you have a specific goal that you're working toward, and it might take
right,
3 months or 6 months or a year. Whereas this is more like introspection, and to me, it's going to take however long it's going to take. Maybe
yeah,
3 months does work for some people. Maybe
yeah,
some people need longer to kind of uncover what those blocks are, and be in this space that you're providing them that they're not going to get anywhere else, to be able to really figure out how to move forward. So I love how we just kind of like broke that down. So we're going to get
yeah.
into a lot more good stuff. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking more with Lauri Ingram. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. I am talking today with Lauri Ingram. You can learn more about her at www.lauriingram.com. That's spelled LAURIINGRAM.com. So, Lauri, we were talking during the break about just what you do as far as the wedding ceremonies that you
Hmm.
officiate. And I think that people are probably really fascinated to hear about that, and why someone would come to, would come have you as an officiant versus,
Just as a
a
piece,
JP.
or
Yeah,
yeah, or
exactly.
going to a church or
Yep.
something like that.
Yep.
You know, what what I love about weddings is really the creativity, because, and I tell couples this, and many of them are often surprised. There's actually only two things you need to do legally in a wedding ceremony. One is some declaration of intent that you basically know that you're getting married, and then a pronouncement. The rest of it is totally up for whatever they want it to be. So for me, it really becomes working with that couple to create a ceremony that reflects their values and actually transforms them energetically,
Hmm.
supported by all, whether it's nobody else there or 200 people there. It is an energetic experience. And very similar to the other work I do when I lead my couples through that process, we're also uncovering why, not only why they're getting married, but why do they love each other, and how do they want people to feel during the ceremony? What do they want them to remember about the ceremony? And how is that ceremony reflecting the life that they're building together? Why is it important to do it in front of people? These are all things that many couples don't think about. And then I start asking them those questions. And then it becomes like, wow, we hadn't thought about that. So the work I do with clients is usually more than just writing the ceremony, right?
Mhm.
It's companioning them on that path, making this decision. The couples that come to me typically have been together a while. They want something different. They don't want just a cookie cutter ceremony. Um, Often they're navigating families that maybe they were raised religious. Their family might be religious, but they might not be. Um,
That's
they
always
might,
fun.
right. So they
Yeah.
want some, right. So they want, so it's threading that needle of writing a ceremony that reflects the couple, but also respects and is inclusive.
Sure.
So inclusivity to me is very important. And now what I find happening is now, I'm officiating the ceremonies, and then they're deciding to have babies. And one of the things we talk about is, baby blessings, because often they want to welcome the child into the world, but they don't want to do a baptism, right?
Mm.
So, we do a baby blessing or a baby naming, and or I also do life celebrations or memorial services, and then somebody who passes away, and let's call Lauri. It becomes this full life experience of all of those, all the beautiful emotions of life, of joy and sadness and grief and community and family and friends, and um yeah.
I mean, it seems so beautiful to me because I can't tell you how many weddings and even funerals that I've been to where I've felt like there just wasn't any feeling. I mean,
Hmm.
like it's
Yeah.
so rote, just like especially I'll say it because I'm Catholic. It's like especially the Catholic ones.
Oh
It's like
yes.
they're
Yeah.
it's like okay, it's just like
Right.
okay, this passage, this passage, this passage. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? There's nothing here about these two people at all. Like,
Exactly.
and it's
Yeah.
like they're just going through the motions, standing in front of a ton of people. I want to know them. Like I want to
Mhm.
hear them say to each other why they want to marry each other, like that kind of thing. Not that it's about me or anything anybody else other than them, maybe that's the point. Maybe to me if
Mhm.
all those kinds of ceremonies have felt so removed from it being about the couple.
Right. And it's all about the couple. It's
Yeah.
every moment of it is about them. And like I say to them, you love each other. Everybody you're inviting loves you. You love them, they love you. You love it's all love, right? So how can
Yep.
we bring everybody into that space of finding love in their hearts, regardless of what their religion may or may not be?
Sure.
Because the truth is, and I learned this in seminary, the common thread across all religions and faiths is love. And you get right down to it. It's all love. And,
That's why we're all the
right,
same, they're all the same, even
well,
though
I know.
yeah.
Yeah. And my role there is to bring everybody to that space, right? To bring the couple there, to have every person there feel that they are part of it because they are. And I actually even say that usually in the ceremony. Every person there energetically have a place in that ceremony. And when you actually get to the place where you've you've joined them legally, but you also join them at a soul level, it's magnified by the fact that you have all those other people in that same space.
Mhm.
And um, it's a transformative moment. It really is. And I love it. Every ceremony is different.
Yeah.
So, you
And
know,
it's so amazing to hear that now you're actually continuing to work with these couples for
mhm.
other things that are other major life events like having a baby or whatever it might be that are happening in
Right,
their
whatever it
lives.
might be. Right. Have it,
Yeah.
have or realizing that as part of the process of creating the ceremony, maybe they really, aren't being totally present in their relationship. So, we might talk a bit about mindfulness and mindful
Hmm.
practices and listening, right? Because essentially, I listen a lot, but I listen between the words too. And that's a skill that many people need to cultivate, especially when they're
Mhm.
in relationship, um, of really hearing the other person and not being present for them.
Not hearing,
So,
not listening to answer, listening to listen, right?
right. Yeah, not having not sitting
Yeah,
formulating the answer in your head, but really, really listening, right?
yeah,
So, those are all the kinds of things. And then I also have situations where then sometimes one person in the couple may decide to work with me one-on-one because they realize that, there are things maybe holding them back from how they want to live authentically. And so often I will work with, sometimes I work with both of them separately, or one or both of them separately. Um, but it becomes it's a relationship that I build with them.
right.
Not just showing up I just don't show up for the ceremony.
Yeah.
So
So I'm sure you have so many amazing, stories of, from your clients. Can you tell us, one where you witnessed a significant transformation in this person after working with you, and what happened?
sure, one comes to mind of someone that came to me a few years ago who actually had a religious upbringing, fairly strict religious upbringing, um, and was in a situation where they knew it didn't align with their values anymore. They weren't so they had worked their way out of it, but were kind of lost from that perspective because they didn't quite know, since they had left a church that had kind of strict doctrine and God. They really didn't know what they believed, and so we went through a process over about a year of I held space for their exploration and their questioning of their values and what was really important to them, and really assessing what had been, and I don't want to say, some people call it programming. It's not really that, but we all have those stories that we
Hmm.
grew up with, Catholic, Catholic guilt, all those things. Um, Investigating them, questioning them, and unraveling them to get to a place of acceptance where now this person um, feels comfortable. And I'm a Reiki practitioner. I do all of that. This person had no interest in any of those things. Now they come to me for, for energy balancing with Reiki. They're, curious about crystals. These were
Wow.
things that were very full, and they were afraid to even talk to me about. They would say, I can't tell anybody I'm coming here. And it took time, but that person is now shifted into realizing that their life experience probably is their calling going forward, to eventually work with other people who may be
Wow.
going through, because we always end up serving from where we were, right?
True.
In whatever way we serve. So, um, and I just love it. I hear from them periodically now, and they're always so excited about like excited. I just get so excited to hear about how excited they are about their new, something new that they discovered, or some breakthrough they've had, or you know,
Yeah, it's very similar to, I do a lot of these calls, and I work with a lot of natural medicine providers,
hmm
and the same thing, like so many of them, when we talk about, like, how did they come to become a naturopath or integrative physician or whatever it is, it's because they had some challenging health crisis, and they went to traditional medicine, nobody could figure it out, and so they
right.
finally took it upon themselves, or they went to a naturopath or whatever, and they were healed, and now they've become so passionate about wanting to help other people do this. It's the same thing with
It is.
spirituality, the kinds of things that you're doing as well, energy work, all of that. People have such an impactful experience with working with you that now they decide, this is my
What
purpose,
they
this is
want
what
to
I want
do.
to do. Yeah, I want to teach more people about it.
Right. And while I don't like to get carried into the stories, I do ask, I do ask, tell me about your life, because there are hints there. There's
Yeah.
always hints there. There's always threads you can pull out. It's not getting carried away in those stories, but to pull out those golden nuggets and those threads that then it becomes aha moments often, like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's
But
always been there.
right. And
Mm.
also sometimes it takes working with someone like yourself to be able to pull those things out, because you don't always as
It's
yourself, you can't always do it for
no,
yourself.
you can't. Yeah, and we can't always think our way out of these things either, right?
That's my biggest problem.
Yeah, we
Always trying to
talk
use up here to
and
to
yeah, no,
figure it
sometimes you
out.
can't. Sometimes you
No.
can't.
Yeah,
I
many
know.
times. And
Yeah,
you're not supposed to. It has
it's
sometimes things have to come from
to
here
come
for
from the
sure.
heart. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
exactly.
Fascinating. So you're listening to the Dr. Diane show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking more with Lauri Ingram, certified interspiritual counselor. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. You can learn more about me at www.drdianehayden.com. And I'm talking today with Lauri Ingram. You can learn more about her at www.lauriingram.com. So, Lauri, we were talking just on the short break about you've talked a lot about living authentically and
Mhm.
consciousness, and be coming from a heart-centered place, and in fact I just said that before we went to break, how I'm always like trying to solve my problems with this and not my heart. How do you, when you work with someone, how do you guide clients towards that goal? Like, how do you teach them how to have, be more conscious and come from a more heart-centered place?
The first thing I do is assess how much in their body they are, because many of us are really not in our body. And to be consciously aware, you really need to be very grounded. Yeah, we talk about spirituality, and many people like to be up here, right? Up in the ethers. And yeah, it's kind of cool up there. But the reality is we're in this earth, right?
Right.
So we have to be grounded in this earth. So the first part of living heart centered is really becoming very aware of your body and where you feel things in your body. Um, where where do you know it when something's a yes? How do you feel it? Where do you feel it? That's where I usually start with them. And then as you begin to become aware of when you're thinking as opposed to when you're feeling, you could begin to practice that discernment of where is this coming from, right? Is this a story in my head that's replaying from when I was a child, or is this my intuition, my higher self, my gut, my essence, whatever you want to call it, my soul speaking to me? But that does it requires some embodiment work, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so that's kind of the first step. Um, to get to that physical awareness, and then moving through those layers of becoming really emotionally intelligent. Being able to name our emotions, um, being okay with them, being able to sit with them, allowing them to pass, and figuring out how it sounds easy, but how do you know when something is a yes? How do you know when it's a no? And many people just have no clue. So we practice it. There's a lot of practicing, and we start simply. And then I can also bring in other modalities that I work with, depending on what the person's interest may be. Creativity is often a gateway in to getting messages from ourselves through color, through images that maybe help people see it a little bit differently as well.
Do you do you obviously you work obviously in person, but you do virtual
Hmm.
work as
I do.
well. And so if
Yes.
you're doing
Yeah.
like some of these creativity exercises, someone can do that even though they're working virtually with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have, I might show, I have two cameras and I can show people what I'm doing. Um, I find that even the creativity, people are actually even more comfortable at home when they
Yeah.
do that because they have their own stuff. And we're not talking about anything fancy. It's not art.
It's not
This is
Picasso. They don't have to be
No, it's not
Picasso.
Picasso. This is
Right.
literally making marks on a page, right?
Yeah.
How does it feel? How does it feel to do that, right? Taking anger out on a piece of paper. It's not art therapy really, but it's moving color and images and collages and being drawn to images and really being surprised about what that might tell you about yourself. Um, it's really an unfolding and a reconnection. And honestly, I think it's like we spend our lives unlearning everything we learned when we were children.
Isn't it crazy?
It is crazy. I also do a lot of guided visualization um, with clients, and knowing that not everybody can visualize, but people often can feel or sense in different ways when I bring them into a space of and guide them through in many different ways. That is all about reconnecting with their true essence. And all the work I do is grounded in mindfulness. It's grounded in presence. And when people can be comfortable with being present and not trying to change however they're feeling, they can suddenly start to hear from a different place
Mm.
what their soul is trying to tell them, what their essence is trying to tell them. And from that place, they often realize that, oh, I'm not my stories. I'm a limitless person with infinite possibilities ahead of me. Those stories don't exist in that place of pure presence.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, what's the future hold for you? Are there any new things like on the horizon for you? New
I
areas or
I do have
services?
a few, yeah, I do have a few things. I actually have an online course that's if people are familiar with chakras, this is a general journey through chakra energy.
You.
But it's from a very I would say secular place, I guess. And it's an online course, and every month I release a combination of talks and videos. We do some creative exercises. I bring in crystal energy, some essential oil work, embodiment work, and I have online classes that people can take. And then once a month, I do a live Zoom call, and we just talk about it in community. So it's
Mhm.
at your own pace, but it's really an unfolding and an exploration of your own energy system. And then in a few months, I think in March, I'm going to be offering a 6 weeks uh, virtual and in-person class on resilience because I do believe
That's a good one.
that we
Yeah.
all that it's really important now, and it's as if anybody follows anything astrologically or in any other way, there's a lot happening in the world and will be happening probably the rest of my lifetime. So it's a time to kind of bring out those resilience skills and shore them up, and also be in community to work through the tough times
Yeah.
we
And
all go through.
will that be virtual?
That'll be virtual, and I will also probably do a hybrid. So I will have in person. People can be in person as well, but it'll be
Okay.
both.
And people can learn about both of these just by going to your website,
Go into my
Lauri.
website. Yep.
Yep,
Yep.
lauriingram.com. Mm-hmm.
Events or reach out. I love to just chat with people. So
Yeah,
reach
I
out and
think that,
schedule a half-hour call, or
I was just going
everything's
to
on my
say that.
site.
Yeah, anyone who's listening to this, if they're curious about learning more about you or, wanting to just ask some questions, they can certainly schedule a consultation
Absolutely.
with you
Yep.
and go from there
Yeah. I do
for
offer
sure.
a complimentary chat over tea. I don't drink coffee,
Awesome.
but so yeah.
So, what message would you like to leave our listeners with, especially those that are maybe contemplating a significant life change or seeking spiritual guidance?
I the message that I'd like people to know is that, we're here to live, and we're here to live fully into who we are. That is really, I think, the point of life. And it's really our birthright. So, however you do that, give yourself permission to explore and be curious. I think the other message is, and don't be attached to what it's going to look like, because I certainly would have never thought I was doing this. If you'd asked me 10 years ago. So, just remove any aspirations for what it might even look like, and have joy, find that joy in your life.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think so important, as well as the, just finding someone like you that can hold a space of non-judgment where people can really, ask questions that they're afraid to ask, or tell you things that they can't tell anyone else.
Everybody else, right, right. And I was fortunate to have those people in my life. So now I'm fortunate to do it for others.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, it's pretty amazing what you do. I think that, we need more people like you, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yes, no, we do. I do think that more and more people are seeking that, right? And like I said earlier, especially our young people, generationally, there's a huge shift going on.
Yes. And it
And
is, go
yeah,
ahead.
no, there's a generational shift right now, that being present for those, as I enter, I'm in my mid 60s, right? I'm entering that place of giving back to help that generation move into a world and change it, because it is going to
Yeah.
be a different world.
And it is great to see.
Absolutely.
It's great to see that
It
people
is.
that age are coming to see you. I think that
Yeah,
is really, really inspirational, for sure.
it
So I
is.
want to thank you so
So,
much, Lauri, for being with us. Again, people can find out more about you at www.lauriingram.com. And I want to thank all of you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show. Please join me the first and third Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Next time, we'll be discussing more about the power of thoughts and beliefs and the impact they have on your life. Have a great week, and I will see you back here next time. Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.